The sun was low over the golden towers of the Felinar Empire, casting long shadows across the marble floors of the royal court. In the heart of the palace, voices whispered and laughter floated through the hallways, sharp and cutting. The source of the court's amusement was not a grand spectacle or a faltering servant. It was a man, a human. Ethan walked beside Princess Liara, trying to keep his head high. His steps were measured, careful, as if each one could be judged. The soft purrs of the cat nobles filled the room, a sound both beautiful and dangerous. Their eyes, almond-shaped and glowing, tracked his every movement. Some smirked openly, their tails flicking with amusement, while others whispered behind fans, sharing cruel jokes about the weak human who dared to marry their princess. Liara's hand brushed against his sleeve. "Ignore them," she whispered. Her voice was soft but firm. "They do not see what I see." This was his first day fully walking among them in the palace without Liara by his side as a shield. They had married in secret months ago, a union that brought him happiness but also endless ridicule. He had hoped that time would lessen the court's mockery, but today, entering the grand hall, it was clear that nothing had changed. "Look at him," one noble purred to another, his voice dripping with derision. "He walks like a kitten learning to leap." Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the polished floors themselves tried to pull him down. He kept his hands at his sides, but his fingers were tight, trembling slightly. He had trained with Liara every day, learning the ways of the Felinar, balance, grace, even a little self-defense. But no amount of practice could erase the difference between him and them. Finally, the Emperor's voice boomed, echoing through the hall. "The Alpha trials will commence tomorrow. All husbands of royal daughters and eligible suitors are to prepare. The Empire will witness who is worthy to hold influence and power beside the throne." Stories told of warriors facing impossible beasts, navigating deadly labyrinths, and solving puzzles that challenged even the most brilliant minds. None had ever seen a human succeed. The court's laughter returned, quieter this time, more restrained. Yet the look in their eyes was the same, disbelief, amusement, and open mockery. Liara stepped close to him, her hand brushing his arm again. "Do not let them see your fear. Tomorrow you will stand in the arena, and I know you will surprise them." He felt small, fragile, and painfully human. That evening, the palace gardens were quiet. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and lanterns glowed softly, casting a warm light over the perfectly trimmed hedges. Ethan wandered among the flowers, trying to calm his thoughts. Liara joined him a few moments later, moving like water between the shadows, her fur glinting silver in the lantern light. "They think you are weak," she said simply, walking beside him. "Perhaps you are, but weakness is not only about strength. There is more to winning than force. The ability to think beyond what is expected. They are strong, yes, but they are also arrogant. That is where you have your advantage. I believe you will make them reconsider everything they think they know about humans." Every scenario seemed to favor the Felinar, with their strength, agility, and reflexes far beyond a human's. Yet beneath the fear, a small spark of determination ignited. He remembered the moments with Liara, her quiet faith in him, the way she had guided him through every awkward lesson, and the rare smile she gave when he found a clever solution she had not expected. He realized that he did have a chance, not by mimicking them, but by using the qualities that made him human. Morning came with a golden haze over the palace. The hallways were alive with tension and anticipation. Ethan donned the simple trial uniform, light armor designed for flexibility rather than protection. It hung loosely on his frame, emphasizing his small size compared to the muscular cat warriors and graceful Felinar nobles who moved like shadows beside him. The arena awaited. It was massive, carved from stone and metal, with platforms, traps, and sections designed to test every skill imaginable. The crowd filled the stands, a sea of fur, claws, and glowing eyes. The whispers followed Ethan wherever he went, some cruel, some curious. "Watch the human," one noble hissed. "He will not last the first trial. This is a farce." A series of obstacles appeared before the competitors, towering walls, swinging platforms, and a pit filled with shifting mechanical beasts. The Felinar warriors leapt forward effortlessly, muscles coiling and tails balancing them with perfect precision. Ethan took a deep breath and followed, his steps cautious but deliberate. The first wall loomed before him, high and smooth. Other competitors scaled it with ease, their claws scraping against the surface. Ethan looked at the small ledges barely visible to the naked eye. With careful observation, he found a pattern, a rhythm to the wall, and used it to climb steadily, hand over hand, foot over ledge. He stumbled once, catching himself just in time, heart pounding, but he made it to the top. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some were shocked. Some laughed, but with a hint of unease. Next came the swinging platforms. They moved unpredictably, requiring speed and precision. Felinar competitors leapt from platform to platform, their claws clicking against metal, tails balancing every move. Ethan paused, observing their rhythm. Then he timed his jumps, using the smallest movements to conserve energy. He slipped once, nearly falling into the pit below, but caught a rope dangling nearby. Slowly, deliberately, he crossed the gap, his breathing steady despite the danger. The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Some of the cat nobles exchanged uncertain glances. Was it possible that the human had more skill than they expected? Finally, the pit of mechanical beasts. They were small, quick, and aggressive, snapping and lunging at anyone who came too close. Most competitors rushed forward, relying on speed and reflex. Ethan crouched low, watching the patterns of the creatures. He noticed that they reacted to sound and movement in predictable ways. With a few quick adjustments, he manipulated the environment, using a loose stone to distract one, then another, until he created a safe path through the pit. By the end of the first trial, Ethan stood on the platform, sweaty, exhausted, and trembling, but victorious. The crowd fell silent for a moment, and then a ripple of surprise passed through the stands. Even some of the harshest critics could not deny his cleverness, his observation, and his ability to survive where others might fail. Liara's eyes shone from the stands. Pride and love radiated from her as she saw her husband, weak in body perhaps, but strong in ways the court had not yet understood. She knew this was only the beginning, that tomorrow would bring new challenges, fiercer tests, and more ridicule. But for the first time, she saw the spark in Ethan that could change everything. As Ethan left the arena, his legs shaking but his mind alight with ideas for the next trial, he felt something he had never felt in the court before: respect. Not from all, but from enough to make a difference. He had taken the first step, survived the first test, and begun to prove that a human, no matter how small or weak, could stand among the greatest of the Felinar. The court mocked him today. The Empire laughed at him. But tomorrow he would rise again, and he would be ready. The morning sun spilled over the arena like liquid gold, painting the towering walls in warm light. Ethan stood at the edge of the field, armor glinting softly, muscles tense and heart racing. He had survived the first trial, impressing a few of the silent observers and shocking many others, yet the mockery of the court still lingered like a shadow. The second trial would test more than strength or agility. It would test wit, endurance, and courage. The Felinar Emperor had announced it last night in a voice that resonated through every hall of the palace. This trial will reveal the mind and spirit, not merely the body. Only those who adapt and survive will prove their worth. Liara's words echoed in his mind. You have what they lack: patience, observation, the ability to think beyond what is expected. He clenched his fists, feeling the same quiet determination that had carried him through the first trial. The arena was transformed. Where yesterday had been platforms, walls, and pits, today there were forests of mechanical trees, mazes of shifting stone, and streams of water that ran faster than any human river he had ever known. The challenge was not clear at first. Competitors were to reach the heart of the arena, where a single flag floated atop a platform nearly invisible from the ground. The Felinar competitors, tall and powerful, sprinted forward with ease, their claws digging into the soil, tails balancing each movement. Ethan hesitated, watching carefully. His human legs were slower, his body weaker, but he had learned that observation often gave him an advantage others missed. He noted the flow of the streams, the gaps between moving rocks, the pattern of shifting walls. Timing and careful planning would be his tools, not brute strength. A Felinar warrior, muscles rippling and golden fur glinting, shot past him and called out, laughing. You will not survive this, human. Go back to your kitchens. One misstep and a competitor could be swept away into a pit below. Others leaped recklessly, claws slipping against the stones, tails twitching to regain balance. Ethan paused, noticing the pattern. The stones moved slightly with the water flow, rocking back and forth. He waited for the perfect moment, then jumped. 1, 2, 3, he reached the other side, heart pounding but stable. A few Felinar paused, surprised. Humans were not supposed to be this careful, this precise. Next came a maze of shifting stone walls. The walls moved slowly, sliding along tracks, but their paths were unpredictable. Most Felinar competitors barged through aggressively, pushing walls and trying to brute force their way forward. Ethan crouched low, studying the mechanism, noticing small grooves and levers embedded in the floor. He realized that by pressing certain stones in sequence, he could temporarily lock a wall and create a safe path. The first attempt failed. He pressed the wrong stone and the wall shifted dangerously close, almost pinning him. His heart raced, but he recalculated. Using logic and observation, he found the correct sequence and navigated through the maze, emerging unscathed. Several competitors had become trapped or exhausted, relying too much on strength and instinct. As he reached a clearing, a new challenge awaited. A series of mechanical beasts, wolf-like with glowing eyes, designed to test courage and agility. They prowled silently, their metal claws clicking on the stone floor. Felinar warriors leapt forward, trying to fight them off. Many were injured, their fur singed or scratched. Ethan froze for a moment, analyzing. Fighting them directly would be foolish. He had no weapons or strength to match these engineered predators. Instead, he noticed a series of low walls and hanging vines. Moving slowly, staying out of direct line of sight, he dodged between cover points. A mechanical beast lunged, snapping its metal jaws. Ethan rolled to the side, grabbing a vine to swing over its head. One by one, he used the environment to evade the creatures. The crowd watched in growing astonishment. Even the harshest critics murmured among themselves. The human moved not with speed or power, but with intelligence and patience. He did not confront the obstacles directly. He studied them, understood them, and used what he had. Halfway through the trial, a Felinar competitor called out in disbelief. He thinks he can outsmart the creatures? Outthink us. Yet even with the careful moves, he felt the strain in his human muscles. Sweat ran down his forehead. His lungs burned. Every movement required precision, concentration, and endurance he did not know he possessed. Then came the final stage, the cliff of courage, a sheer drop hundreds of feet into a pit of shifting metal and water. Across the chasm, the flag waited, floating atop a platform barely stable. Felinar warriors pounced without hesitation, leaping with perfect grace and landing securely. Many succeeded, a few fell, slipping in rare mistakes. Ethan approached the edge. Looking down, his stomach lurched. The drop was dizzying, and the movement of the platform across the pit made it seem impossible. For a moment, doubt crept in. Could he really jump this gap? Could he survive this? He heard Liara's voice in his mind. Courage is not the absence of fear, Ethan. Courage is acting despite it. Counting in his mind, he took a running start, pushed off with every ounce of strength in his human legs, and leaped. The platform rocked, shifted, and for a heartbeat he was flying. Then, feet planted firmly, he balanced steady. The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, and then applause spread across the stands. Ethan had done the impossible, not by matching their strength, but by using his mind, his timing, his courage. A Felinar noble approached him afterward, tail flicking nervously. I did not think a human could accomplish that," he admitted reluctantly. "You have cunning. And patience. You are not just surviving, you are proving them wrong. You have all three." They measured worth by the wrong standards. Humans like him could shine in ways they could not imagine. The next morning, as sunlight spilled through the palace windows, Ethan rose with renewed purpose. The third trial awaited, and he knew it would be even harder. Perhaps there would be beasts even larger, puzzles more complex, or warriors even stronger, yet he did not fear them. He had learned something vital. Humans could adapt, could endure, and could outthink those who relied only on raw power. Liara appeared at the door, her expression unreadable. "The trials are not just a test of skill," she said softly. "They are a test of will, and you have shown yours already, but remember, the court will watch you carefully. They will try to break you with words, with fear, with doubt. Hold fast. Your mind and heart are your greatest weapons." Yet for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of certainty. He had survived 2 trials, learning to use what made him human to overcome the impossible. The court mocked him less now, watching more closely, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected display of intelligence and courage. In the arena, the sun glinted off the polished stones and metal, and the crowd waited with bated breath. Ethan stepped forward, ready to face the next challenge, ready to prove again that being human was not a weakness. It was a strength. And for the first time, he believed it himself. The morning air was crisp and sharp as Ethan entered the arena for the 3rd trial. He could feel the tension in the crowd, a mixture of curiosity, anticipation, and skepticism. The Felinar court had begun to notice him, though some still whispered doubts. Today, the trial would test endurance, courage, and cunning like never before. Rumors had spread about the final obstacle of this trial, a living beast engineered by the Empire to be nearly unbeatable. Even the strongest Felinar warriors had failed before. Ethan's muscles ached from the previous trials, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew brute force alone would not carry him through. Instead, he relied on observation, logic, and calm calculation. Liara stood nearby, her silver fur glowing softly in the sunlight, her eyes full of quiet pride. "You are ready," she said simply, brushing a hand against his arm. "Remember, they will underestimate you. Use that. Make them see what humans can do." The bridges swayed with every step, and below, mechanical spikes shifted and twisted like living vines. Felinar warriors leapt confidently across, their tails balancing with perfect grace. Ethan paused, studying the motion. Timing was key. Each sway had a rhythm, and if he moved too quickly, he would fall. He inched forward one careful step at a time, counting the sway of the bridges in his mind. The spikes below glinted menacingly, but he kept his focus, heart steady. Halfway across, a gust of wind threatened to knock him off balance. He dropped low, gripping the rope rails, and adjusted his weight carefully. The crowd watched in silence, some holding their breath. He reached the other side without incident, and murmurs of surprise rippled through the stands. Next came the labyrinth of stone walls. Unlike the previous maze, this one shifted constantly, rearranging itself as competitors moved. Many Felinar rushed through, relying on speed, only to find themselves trapped or exhausted. Ethan crouched low, noticing the grooves and hinges in the stone. He realized that if he moved slowly and observed the walls, he could predict their shifts and find a safe path. He moved carefully, pressing hidden levers he discovered along the way, causing walls to lock and unlock in sequence. The path opened, and he advanced steadily. His human endurance was tested. Every muscle burned, every breath came hard, yet his mind remained alert. He kept thinking ahead, planning 2 steps beyond each obstacle. Then he reached the most feared part of the trial, the beast's den. A massive creature emerged from the shadows, its form a terrifying combination of Felinar strength and mechanical design. Its claws scraped against the stone floor, sparks flying, and its eyes glowed red. The court gasped. Felinar warriors had been injured or eliminated by this creature before. Ethan froze for a moment, studying it. Unlike the others, he did not attack blindly. He noticed its movements were fast but patterned. It relied on force and reflex, striking where it predicted prey would move. Humans were smaller, weaker, but their minds could see patterns, could adapt. He backed slowly, careful not to provoke it, watching how it reacted. A swing of its claws, a lunge, a step forward, he observed and counted. Then he saw an opening, a ledge above its head, just wide enough for him to climb. He leapt carefully, landing safely. The creature growled, twisting to follow him, but it could not reach him. Ethan moved across the ledge, using his surroundings to stay out of reach. The crowd was silent, some leaning forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. A human, small and weak compared to this engineered predator, was navigating it with intelligence, patience, and courage. The beast lunged again, faster this time. Ethan ducked behind a column, using the creature's momentum against it. He noticed a gap in its armor, a small seam at its joints. With quick thinking, he grabbed a fallen metal rod and prodded the seam, triggering a mechanism that temporarily slowed the creature. He ran, jumping across another series of platforms, using every ounce of agility he had. The beast roared, furious, but it could not match his careful planning. For the first time, the court witnessed a human outsmarting what they had considered unbeatable. Murmurs turned into astonishment. Some whispered, others stared, unable to hide their disbelief. Liara watched from the stands, her tail flicking with pride. Ethan's movements were deliberate, thoughtful, and precise. He was not just surviving, he was commanding the situation, controlling the battlefield with his mind rather than claws. Finally, he reached the final ledge where the flag of victory floated above a pedestal. He took a deep breath, his muscles shaking from exhaustion. One leap, one final act of courage. He jumped, catching the edge and pulling himself up. His chest heaved, but he had done it. The crowd erupted in a mix of shock, awe, and admiration. Felinar nobles whispered among themselves, unable to deny the human's ingenuity. Even those who had mocked him most could not hide their astonishment. He had faced the beast's den, a creature designed to crush all who challenged it, and survived using only his mind, courage, and determination. Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted, but a smile spread across his face. He had done it. He had survived the 3rd trial, and in doing so, he had begun to change the way the court saw humans. A noble approached cautiously, tail flicking nervously. I did not think it possible," he said. "You have skill and courage beyond what I expected." Perhaps we misjudged your kind. Later in the palace gardens, Liara met him as he returned, sweat-streaked and tired. You have done more than survive, she said softly. You have begun to change hearts and minds, but tomorrow will be harder. The fourth trial will test everything you have learned and more. I do not know what lies ahead, but I will face it, not with claws or speed, but with what I have inside me. That is what makes you dangerous to those who underestimate you. By the time dawn broke, he was ready. The fourth trial would bring new dangers and perhaps even direct confrontation with other competitors. But he had learned a vital truth. Humans could face the impossible and prevail, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, resilience, and courage. The arena doors opened once more, sunlight flooding the field. Ethan stepped forward, shoulders back, head held high. The court watched, curiosity and skepticism mingling in their eyes. Some still doubted him, but others were beginning to see something remarkable. A human, small and seemingly weak, standing unbowed in a world that favored strength above all else. Ethan's heart beat fast, not with fear, but with determination. The trials had tested him, but they had also revealed his true power, the power of being human. And as he stepped into the next stage, he knew one thing clearly. He would survive, he would adapt, and he would prove that even a human could rise among the greatest warriors of the Felinar Empire. And the court would never look at humans the same way again. The arena had never looked more intimidating. The morning sun glinted off the polished walls, revealing new sections that Ethan had never seen before. The fourth trial was the final challenge before the ultimate test, the trial that would determine who could claim influence in the Empire. Competitors from the previous trials had been reduced in number, some defeated, some exhausted, and a few seriously injured. Yet Ethan stood tall, his body tired but his mind sharp. He glanced at Liara, who waited at the edge of the arena. Her eyes shone with pride and concern, a combination he had come to rely on. The final stage is not just physical, she said quietly. It will test your mind, your decisions, and your ability to lead. Remember what you have learned. The lessons of the previous trials had prepared him, not just for obstacles, but for strategy. He understood now that strength was only part of the equation. Observation, patience, and ingenuity were equally important. The trial began with a roar from the Emperor. Immediately, competitors were faced with a multi-stage challenge that combined elements of combat, puzzles, and diplomacy. Platforms shifted and rotated, walls rearranged, and creatures roamed freely. Unlike the previous trials, they were not just obstacles, they were moving challenges that required decision-making in real time. A Felinar warrior lunged at a platform above Ethan, claws extended. Many competitors reacted instinctively, attacking or leaping without thought. Ethan observed. The warrior's movements were fast but predictable, relying on brute strength. By calculating the timing, Ethan managed to step to a secure ledge without being noticed. A small smile crossed his face. Observation, not force, had carried him through yet again. Next came the puzzle chamber. Blocks of glowing stone floated in midair, forming an intricate pattern. Competitors were expected to rearrange the blocks to open a passage to the next stage. Many Felinar tried to force the blocks into place with strength, using their tails and claws. The blocks resisted. Time passed. Ethan crouched and studied the pattern. The blocks shifted in response to weight, balance, and sequence. Using a logical approach, he moved them carefully, testing combinations in his mind before making physical adjustments. Slowly, the blocks aligned, forming the correct pattern. The passage opened. A murmur ran through the crowd. A human had solved the puzzle before most of the Felinar. The next challenge combined combat and diplomacy. Competitors had to work in pairs to navigate a section filled with both traps and minor beasts. Alliances could be formed or ignored, and decisions would affect their ability to move forward. Many Felinar hesitated, unsure whether to trust others, as their culture prized individual strength and pride. Ethan approached a fellow competitor, a younger Felinar named Kyle, who looked as nervous as he felt. "We can help each other," Ethan said simply. "I can observe the traps, you can handle the beasts, together we can succeed. Let us try your way." Felinar rarely relied on cooperation, seeing it as a weakness. Yet here was a human not only surviving but improving the efficiency of others through collaboration. Whispers ran through the stands. "The human thinks like a leader," one noble said. "Perhaps he is more dangerous than we imagined." Now the final segment awaited, the leadership trial. A series of platforms suspended high above the arena represented sections of the Empire. Competitors were to guide small groups of robotic Felinar through each platform, making decisions that affected the group's survival. Mistakes could cost points or lives if the simulation was accurate enough. The Emperor's voice rang out. Leadership is not only strength, it is vision, courage, and foresight. Show the Empire what you are made of. He observed his team, identified strengths and weaknesses, and adapted quickly. When a robotic Felinar stumbled near a trap, he directed another to assist. When a path appeared dangerous, he chose a safer route. Step by step, he guided his group through the platforms, making decisions based on logic, empathy, and observation. Mistakes were corrected immediately. Progress was steady. Other competitors struggled or argued with their teams, wasting precious time and energy. Ethan's team moved like a well-oiled machine, despite being directed by a human, an alien who had never faced such responsibility before. The final obstacle emerged, a simulation of a rival Felinar faction threatening the group. Competitors could fight directly or negotiate, but aggression alone was dangerous. Most Felinar rushed in, relying on claws and speed. Ethan analyzed the situation. The rivals were programmed to respond to reason and strategy. He used words and tactics to redirect the simulated threat, avoiding unnecessary conflict and securing safe passage for his group. The crowd fell silent. A human had succeeded in a task that many Felinar could not. He had demonstrated leadership, patience, courage, and ingenuity. Even the Emperor's expression changed, his golden eyes narrowing in surprise and appreciation. Liara watched with pride, her tail flicking subtly. Ethan's heart raced, but he kept his composure. Each decision, each careful observation had brought him here. He had begun as the mocked human, underestimated and ridiculed, and now he was proving that his species possessed qualities the Felinar had long ignored. By the end of the fourth trial, Ethan stood on the central platform, watching as his competitors finished or faltered. Some nodded to him, acknowledging his skill. Others still looked doubtful, but the whispers of admiration were growing. The human had survived not by matching the Felinar in strength, but by surpassing them in strategy, cooperation, and leadership. Liara approached him once the trial ended, smiling softly. "You have done it again, Ethan. They see now what I have always known, but tomorrow will be the final trial. And it will decide who truly deserves influence in this empire." The Felinar had mocked him, dismissed him, and yet here he was, standing stronger in mind and spirit than most of the competitors. He understood something vital. Survival in this empire was not only about fighting or running. It was about understanding, adapting, and using every advantage wisely. Humans, though physically weaker, could overcome seemingly impossible obstacles because of their minds and hearts. Dawn broke, painting the palace in hues of gold and silver. Ethan rose, stretching and preparing himself. Today was the fifth trial, the final step before victory. The court would watch, the Emperor would judge, and history would be written. As he entered the arena, he saw the massive final stage. A combination of everything he had faced before, physical obstacles, beasts, puzzles, and leadership tests, but intensified, far more dangerous, and designed to push competitors to their limits. Felinar warriors tightened their grips, some clearly nervous. For the first time, they seemed to recognize that Ethan might not just survive, he might triumph. Ethan's heart beat fast, not with fear, but with determination. Each trial had taught him something new, each challenge had strengthened his mind and spirit. The court had begun to watch him differently, whispers of astonishment and grudging respect replacing laughter. He glanced at Liara standing gracefully at the edge of the arena. "Remember," she said, "humanity has a strength they do not understand. Your mind, your courage, your heart, these are your weapons. Use them well." Tomorrow he would face the final challenge, and he would do so not as the weak human the court mocked, but as a competitor ready to claim his place in the Felinar Empire. The arena fell silent as the competitors readied themselves. Ethan stood tall, shoulders back, head held high. He felt the strength of his own determination, the support of Liara, and the quiet pride of proving himself against impossible odds. The final trial was about to begin, and when it ended, the Empire would never underestimate a human again. The sun rose over the Felinar Empire, bathing the arena in bright light that reflected off golden walls and polished stone floors. The final trial of the Alpha Trials had begun. This trial was unlike any other, an all-in-one challenge combining combat, puzzles, leadership, and endurance. The Emperor's decree was clear. Whoever triumphed today would not only win the trials, but also earn the right to influence the Empire alongside the royal family. Ethan stepped forward, muscles sore from the previous trials, yet his mind sharp and focused. The court had watched him closely for days, whispers now filled with awe instead of mockery. The Felinar warriors, once certain of his failure, now glanced at him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Some even hesitated to challenge him directly. Liara stood at the edge of the arena, her silver fur catching the sunlight. Her eyes were full of quiet pride. "This is your moment," she said softly. "Remember everything you have learned, trust yourself, trust your mind, and you will succeed." He knew this trial would test every skill he had developed, the observation, strategy, courage, and leadership that had carried him through the previous challenges. The trial began with a roar. The arena's floor shifted, revealing platforms, moving walls, and hidden pits. Mechanical beasts scuttled along the paths, their glowing eyes fixed on the competitors. Ethan paused, scanning the arena carefully. He observed the timing of the moving platforms, the patterns of the mechanical beasts, and the behavior of the other competitors. The first obstacle was a series of high platforms that required precision and balance. Felinar warriors leapt effortlessly, claws gripping the edges. Ethan, smaller and weaker, moved with care. He timed his jumps perfectly, relying on observation rather than brute strength. A gust of wind nearly knocked him off, but he dropped low, gripping the platform and stabilizing himself. The crowd gasped, astonished at his careful, intelligent approach. Next came a maze of shifting stone walls, more complex than any he had faced before. Competitors charged forward recklessly, often getting trapped or exhausted. Ethan crouched low, noticing the small grooves in the walls and the subtle movement patterns. Step by step, he navigated the maze, pressing hidden levers that temporarily locked walls in place. Each movement required patience and calculation. Slowly, he emerged unscathed, ahead of several competitors who had underestimated the challenge. Then came the beast's den, even larger and more terrifying than before. A massive creature, part Felinar, part machine, emerged from the shadows. Its claws scraped the stone floor, sparks flying with every step. Its red eyes glowed with intelligence and aggression. Competitors froze, unsure how to approach. Ethan did not hesitate. He studied the creature's movements, noting its predictable attacks. He saw an opening in the armor near its joints. With a quick maneuver, he distracted the beast using a loose metal rod and rolled to safety, avoiding its claws entirely. Step by step, he moved through the den, using his environment, intelligence, and patience to outsmart a creature far stronger than himself. The crowd was silent, unable to believe what they were witnessing. A human, small and fragile in appearance, had not only survived but moved with control, grace, and cunning. Even the Emperor leaned forward, golden eyes narrowing in surprise. After the beast's den, the final puzzle awaited. A series of floating platforms, each containing a complex mechanism that had to be aligned in the correct order to create a path forward. Many competitors tried force or speed, pushing levers recklessly and falling repeatedly. Ethan crouched, observing carefully. He noticed the timing of each mechanism and the sequence in which the platforms could align. Step by step, he adjusted them correctly, creating a safe path. His calm focus contrasted sharply with the frantic movements of the others. Finally, the leadership challenge emerged. A group of robotic Felinar, representing citizens of the Empire, awaited guidance. Competitors had to navigate these robots through a hazardous path, avoiding traps and dangerous zones. Failure could cost points or eliminate the team entirely. Most Felinar relied on command alone, barking orders and expecting obedience. Ethan, however, approached with careful observation and empathy. He studied the strengths of each robot, adjusted their positions, and guided them step by step. When a trap appeared, he redirected the group, ensuring safety. When a path was unclear, he calculated alternatives. His team moved efficiently, each member contributing according to its abilities. The final obstacle was a simulated rival faction threatening the robots. Felinar competitors attacked directly, relying on speed and power, often losing points or causing unnecessary chaos. Ethan analyzed the scenario. He noticed patterns in the rival faction's behavior, realizing they could be manipulated. Using strategic placement and careful timing, he outmaneuvered them without direct confrontation, securing the success of his group. The crowd erupted. Whispers of astonishment turned into open applause. Felinar nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Even the Emperor, a figure known for his rigid judgment, was silent for a moment, studying the human who had defied every expectation. Liara's eyes shone with pride as she watched Ethan step forward, exhaustion evident on his face but his stance confident. For the first time, he had not only survived, but dominated a trial designed to test every skill a competitor could possess. Ethan paused, taking a deep breath. He realized the truth of what he had accomplished. The court, the emperor, and the entire empire had underestimated humans. Strength was not just measured in muscle or reflex. Courage, intelligence, patience, and leadership could surpass physical might. A human, when pushed to their limits, could rise above the greatest warriors of the Felinar Empire. The final moments of the trial were announced. Competitors were to reach the central platform, claim the Alpha Banner, and prove themselves the victor. Felinar warriors leapt forward with force and speed, but many were slowed by exhaustion or miscalculation. Ethan stepped carefully, eyes focused, mind clear. One step at a time, he moved past traps, calculated gaps, and avoided the mechanical hazards. At last, the central platform appeared, floating high above the arena floor. The Alpha Banner glowed brilliantly, a symbol of victory and honor. Ethan took a deep breath, leapt carefully, and caught the edge. He pulled himself onto the platform, heart pounding, muscles trembling but triumphant. The crowd fell silent, stunned by what they had witnessed. A human, small and seemingly weak, had completed every trial flawlessly. Murmurs grew into whispers of awe and respect. Even those who had mocked him most could not deny the skill, courage, and ingenuity displayed. The Emperor rose, his golden eyes fixed on Ethan. "You have surpassed every expectation," he said, his voice echoing across the arena. "You have shown courage where others faltered, intelligence where others failed, and leadership where others relied only on strength. You have earned the right to claim influence in this empire." Felinar nobles who had mocked Ethan now bowed slightly, their expressions a mix of respect and surprise. Liara stepped forward, her tail flicking in subtle pride. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have done more than survive the trials. You have shown the Empire what humans are capable of. You are not weak. You are extraordinary." "I only did what I had to do," he replied. "I used my mind, my heart, and my courage. That is all any human can do, and sometimes it is enough." He had proven that humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and courage could surpass even the greatest of the Felinar warriors. The court, once mocking and dismissive, now watched in awe as Ethan raised the banner high. The message was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. Strength came in many forms, and courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome any obstacle. Liara stepped beside him, her hand on his arm. Together they faced the court, side by side. The Felinar nobles bowed, the crowd cheered, and even the Emperor allowed a rare, approving smile. Ethan, the human once mocked, had claimed the Alpha trials and earned his place in the Empire. He looked out over the arena, heart full, mind clear. The journey had been hard, the challenges relentless, but he had proven something vital. Humanity could rise above ridicule, fear, and impossible odds. They could adapt, endure, and triumph in ways others could not imagine. The court's laughter was gone, replaced by awe and respect. Whispers turned to conversations of admiration. The Felinar Empire had seen what humans were capable of, and Ethan had shown it all. As he held the Alpha Banner high, Liara beside him, he knew this was only the beginning. The trials were over, but the work of leadership, of earning trust, and of shaping an empire had just begun. He had claimed victory, but more importantly, he had proven that humans were worthy of recognition, respect, and honor in a world that had doubted them from the start. And for the first time in the Felinar Empire, a human was not only surviving among the greatest, it was leading them. Ethan stepped down from the platform, the Alpha Banner held firmly in his hands. The crowd erupted once more, louder this time, a wave of approval and admiration washing over the arena. He had done what no one expected, what many thought impossible. A human had claimed the throne's influence through intellect, courage, and perseverance. Liara smiled proudly, her silver fur shining in the sunlight. "This is your victory," she said softly. "Not just the trials, but theirs to see who you truly are." The Alpha trials were won, and humanity had earned its place among the greatest of the Felinar. The Empire would never be the same again.